Hello, YouTube. We are back with another Lord of the Rings online video. This time, we are looking at the landscape difficulty as requested by a viewer. So, what is the difficulty setting for landscape? Well, after level 7, but before, I think it's level 10 or level 11, you can come across a hardened traveler. There's one in Kellendim, kind of way down here. I believe there's one in Thorin's Hall somewhere. I don't. He might just be outside the gate actually, but I don't quite remember. And then I think they also added one in Combe somewhere or Arquette. And then I'm sure, I don't know this for sure, but I guarantee there's one somewhere in Swanfleet, somewhere. I'm sure there would be. But anyways, so you want to you're gonna find a hardened traveler, and when you talk to him, you're gonna have these options for these quests, so to speak. Difficulty 0, which is normal, which you don't have until you select a different difficulty, all the way up to difficulty 9 or heroic +2. What these do is they turn the mobs in the open world, so you're questing mobs, into much harder versions of themselves. So I don't know the exact stats, but just for a quick, simple example, each difficulty would add, let's say, 5% more health, 5% more damage, and I think even a little bit of mitigations so the mobs take less damage per difficulty. So at difficulty 9, it's essentially adding like 100% more damage, 100% more health, and then they probably, obviously they're not going to take 100% less damage because then you do 0 damage. But, and that's also not I don't think that's the exact numbers, but that's just an example. So each difficulty scales a little bit higher and higher. Difficulty 9 or heroic 2 is essentially designed to be where all quests are meant to be now done as a group of 6, is essentially what they're meant to do. Now, what's the benefit of this? Well, or the purpose? Maybe you just want to have a harder time questing. You find that you've made so many characters, you're tired of it being so easy or whatever, and you just want a different challenge, experience the game in a different way. This is a way to do it. But the other benefit is you gain extra virtue experience and just experience in general. So, for example, I have difficulty 3, or Fearless, and at Fearless difficulty, up to 3 members of your fellowship may earn tokens of heroism, which we'll get to in a second. You earn 20% more experience on monster kills and 5% virtue experience. The monster experience, is fine. Like, obviously it's not a bad thing by any means, but I would pass that up and just have the virtue experience and be totally okay with that. The virtue experience is what's really actually important, because the 5% may not seem like a lot, but when you have all of these deeds, right? 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. You see where I'm going? Like 2,000. All of a sudden, all at 4,000, 2,000, all of these deeds start adding up, and now that 5% isn't so minor anymore. You complete a zone, and all of a sudden, you're looking at maybe you're almost earning like a free deed, in that you're now gaining 2,000 experience just out of bonus experience, right? So that's the I guess the benefit of doing this difficulty. Now, how high do you need to go though, right? Because I'm only on difficulty 3, but it goes all the way up to difficulty 9. So when you want difficulty 9 for more experience, well, you actually don't. So difficulty 3, or Fearless, is the highest difficulty required to earn the max rewards. So difficulty 4, or Fearless +1, is not going to give me an extra 1%, 2%, or 5% monster kill experience, and the virtue experience isn't going to go any higher. If I go up to difficulty 9, these bonuses won't change. Difficulty 3 is the max difficulty required to earn the maximum amount of rewards. Now, in addition to this virtue experience and monster kill experience, you also can acquire specific deeds. So this is one of them here. Achieve 130 playing through on adventurous difficulty or higher, which would be difficulty 1 or higher. So if I reached 130 on difficulty 1 or higher, I would get the Adept of Scrolls. So you can earn, there's 3 different titles to earn. There's the Apprentice of X, Adept of X, and Master of X, where X is just your class. So I'm on my Lore Master, so the X is Scrolls, Captain is Banners, I think, Runekeeper is Runes, Guardian is Shields, Warden is Spears, so on and so forth. So at level 50, if you were on difficulty 1 or 2, you would earn the Apprentice of X at level 50, and then at 130, so on the Legendary servers right now, that's a long ways away, but at 130, you would then earn the Adept of Scrolls, or Adept of X, and then if you were to play at Fearless difficulty or higher, you would earn a more unique title, Master of X. So it would be Master of Scrolls, Shields, Spears, etc. So playing at difficulty 9 not only doesn't give you any extra experience, but you also don't gain any extra titles. Fearless is the only difficulty you need to earn the max rewards, including titles. There's no title that's higher than Master, and you only need to play on Fearless difficulty. What playing on a higher difficulty does do, aside from making enemies more difficult, is it awards you with more
what do you need?
Heroes marks. So actually, I might have it in my quest log right now. Yes. So you need to collect tokens of heroism. There's 3 different quests. There's collect 10, collect 20, and collect 30. So what is that? If you collect 60 total, then you can turn in these quests all at the same time. Tokens of heroism drop off of any mob in the open world. They're just a random drop chance. And at higher difficulties, the drop chance of tokens dropping is increased, as well as they can drop for more members of the party. So as we saw earlier, at Fearless difficulty, up to 3 members may earn tokens. Where if you're at difficulty 9, or I guess even difficulty 8, it would be all 6 members. Actually, maybe even difficulty 7, but that doesn't matter. So you would earn these tokens so that you could complete these tasks, right? To collect 5, 10, 20. These tasks do count towards your task, your weekly task quest, where it's, there's also the task board quest where you complete 10 in a week and you get your universal crafting lore as a reward. These token quests count towards those tasks. However, these aren't dailies, these are weekly quests for these 3 task quests. But yes, so then they also reward heroes' marks and reputation with the specific hardened travelers. So you use these tokens that you get from the task, and you barter for essentially rep at the start and a couple of variety of potions. For example, Elixir of Heroism, which doubles the drop rate of the tokens so that you can earn the tokens faster. But you then earn a rep, the Path of Valor, and you can then start unlocking higher tier rewards, and all they are just emotes. So Epic Shiver, Epic Succumb, Resist, Salute, Lecture, Roar, Coin Flip, and Hero Pose. They're just unique emotes that would be specific to your character. I do believe they're bound to account, well, I guess if you technically use the transfer storage system from the login point, you could technically maybe transfer them across server, but essentially we'll just call them they're bound to server. So you could get them on one character and send them to another character, and it would unlock these emotes or poses. But it's not like you buy them once and they're unlocked on all of your characters. You buy them and then they're unlocked on whichever character you use them on. So that's the rewards. That we have the purpose on why you're doing it. We have the what do you need to use. One other thing that you need to also keep in mind is the difficulty setting only affects world mobs, right? You're out questing. It does not affect instances. So if you're in a 3-man dungeon, a 6-man, a raid like Helagrod or Rift or whatever, it doesn't affect those dungeons, but it does affect solo dungeons. So it affects missions, right? So all the missions that you do in Trestle Bridge and in Elder Slate and all that, it does increase the difficulty of the mission mobs. And I do believe it affects solo or duo. It would affect skirmishes when those come out, which can be quite fun, but also challenging. But we don't have skirmishes on the legendary servers right now. But it's something to keep in mind that it does actually affect skirmishes unless the skirmishes you do are a 3-man. But if you have the size set to 1 or 2, solo or duo, then the difficulty setting you have will be present in the instance that you're doing. But I do think it also affects... I'm trying to see if I can find it. It's probably easier if I... Oh, here we go. Yeah, so Woe of the Willow can be done as a solo, duo, or a 3-man. As I said, is if the size of the instance is set to 1 or 2, the difficulty setting you have set will be present in that dungeon. So it's not just open world. It's any instance that you launch from this menu, including skirmishes, but it also affects missions. The only solo instances it does not affect are the book instances. So, for example, in the earlier levels, let's say you made a dwarf or an elf, and you're in Ered Luin, and you have to save Averthal from the docks, or that random instance where you save Sarah from the goblins, and then you meet Skorgrim at the end of it, or you meet Sambrog and Tom Bombadil saves you in the Barrow Downs. Like those kinds of book instances, right? The instances that are tied to the book quests. The difficulty setting does not affect those quests. And that is the only situation where a solo instance is not affected by the difficulty setting. So I know you're now probably thinking, well, what if my friend has a different difficulty than I do? How does the landscape mob and stuff work? Well, for example, let's say you have your difficulty at difficulty 3, Fearless, and your friend is a maniac and they have it at difficulty 9. The math is a bit complicated, but essentially what happens is your friend will view you as completely overpowered. So let's say you're looking at a mob and it has 1,000 health. Well, to your friend, that 1,000 health mob might actually say something like 10,000 health. So it's going to have a lot more health to your friend, and your friend's going to walk up to it and instantly die. The good chance of that happening. Or if they are able to get an attack off, they'll do like 50 damage to it. But you walk up to that same mob and you hit it, and now all of a sudden you do maybe 25 to 30% of its health. So you just see its health drop from 1,000 to, let's say, 750. But to your friend, they just watch it drop from 10,000 down to 7,500. So they see you do like almost 3,000 damage, but in reality to you only did almost 300 damage. So it's not that it doesn't matter if your friend has a higher difficulty than you, it only affects them and what they see. Where it would work the other way, where if someone had no difficulty but you did, that friend that had no difficulty setting, they're going around and they're going to be one-shotting everything. And you're going to think they're completely overpowered because you're seeing all these 2,000, 3,000 health mobs instantly drop. But that's because to your friend that has no difficulty setting, they only have like 100 health. So they're just going to fall over instantly. So it doesn't affect you if your friend has a different difficulty setting than you do. It only affects you specifically. So even though the mob is going to be hitting you really hard, right? Because you have a higher difficulty than your friend, or a lower difficulty than your friend even, then you're going to take more or less damage depending on the scenario. But your friend will take more or no damage depending on the scenario. So don't worry that you have to have the same setting. You absolutely don't. It will not interfere with your friend's setting whatsoever. Now let's talk about tips. And I guess what is the easiest way to go about this? So as I mentioned, difficulty 3 is the highest difficulty you need for max rewards, and difficulty 3 is super doable. It's not too challenging where everything feels impossible, and even doing something like virtues is a massive chore because everything's super strong. That's not the case, but it's also not a pushover where you can run in, pull 100 mobs and kill everything. You will die in that scenario, but it's still a place where every class can still have a good time, except for one, but I'll get into that later. So in most scenarios, range classes, so lore masters, hunters, minstrels, runekeepers, they'll have an easier time in most scenarios, right? They're able to range down a group of ads or mobs before they get to them. They pull 5, they kill 3. Now there's only 2 left attacking them, and they can handle it from there. In that scenario, a melee class, champion, guardian, captain, etc., will struggle a little bit more. Still doable. Oh, there's some sirens going on outside, as usual. Melee classes will struggle a bit in that scenario because they're just going to be taking more damage more often. But they'll be okay in most scenarios. Where it gets a little bit tricky is against ranged enemies. So stuff like goblin spear throwers or orc archers or whatever, or casters, sappers. They do a lot more damage, and it can actually be a bit unexpected, especially when we get into Moria on the legendary servers. Those goblin sappers in Moria, even at difficulty 3 against certain classes, they will walk up to you, drop a bomb, and if that bomb ability crits, you may actually get one shot. So that's just something to keep in mind and something to be mindful of. But most classes will be able to handle it fine. There will be some classes, though, that struggle with that, especially the light armor classes. And then if you're something like a Guardian that has their tactical mitigation is a lot lower, then those situations like Sappers or the Casters, they'll hurt quite a lot. So you do have to just be careful. Bears, as far as I'm aware, have no struggle whatsoever. They probably have the easiest time. I think the fix that they did a couple months ago, where they fixed their healing output, may have made it a little bit more challenging. But I don't think it drastically changed it to a point where now it's not playable anymore, or it's impossible to play on a higher difficulty with a bear. It was just incredibly overpowered, and I still think they might be a little bit more overpowered than other classes. So bear is really easy to do this on. The one class that struggles the most with this, though, is Burglar. Burgs have especially on the legendary servers, have one of the lowest damage outputs. They don't have any AoE, and a lot of their damage just comes from crit chains and crit response. And on top of that, the damage is just flat low. So even on a lower setting like difficulty 3, a Burg will struggle a bit. In a one-on-one scenario, you'll be fine. But if you start pulling a group of mobs, because you don't have a lot of AoE, you're not a heavy armor class, you're a medium armor class, and you don't have a lot of damage output, you will struggle. And that's just the way Burg is. Especially on legendary servers, because Burgs don't get a lot of their good stuff until much after level 50, probably even not until after level 60 in some cases. Trait trees have helped us out a little bit, but Burgs will struggle. And on top of that, because of the legendary servers with the Wraiths, Burgs will even struggle more. So yes, the difficulty setting that you have does affect the Wraiths and Nazguls on the legendary servers. Which means, even at a low difficulty of level 3 or Fearless, the Wraiths are a challenge, right? Especially before level 20, when you don't have the corruption removal, Wraiths are a massive challenge. Hunters are okay. Lore Masters are okay. Minstrels, maybe not so much. Because you're really going to want range, and you're really going to want slows. Certain classes have spammable slows, or can kite a lot like a Runekeeper. Other classes don't. Captains have a lot of self-sustain. Wardens have a lot of self-sustain, though it's not so much on the earlier levels, but later they do. And it becomes a little bit easier to do and handle. But Wraiths will be a challenge pretty much overall until maybe after level 20. Because at level 20 in that area, all of the classes get a corruption removal skill, which makes dealing with the Wraiths much easier, and you're actually going to be doing damage. But Burgs in that scenario still struggle so much. And I'm very sorry if you play a Burglar and you're on the legendary servers. It is a struggle for the Burglar on these servers on a harder difficulty, because the Wraiths do hit hard. They do a lot of damage, and because they're tactical based, even stuff like Guardians will struggle. So just be prepared for that. But that's kind of the joy in it too, is that you kind of have to use everything in your arsenal to handle a Nazgul, or a Wraith rather, at difficulty 3, which I think is fun. Even to the point of using hope tokens. Like, I strongly recommend getting hope tokens on these legendary servers because of how much of a little difference it does make that actually matters in the end, because all the wraiths give you even just one dread. That one dread, that like, what is it, 10% less health that you get can mean life or death in a duel against a wraith. So I personally think that's fun. Some others don't, but I do think it's a unique, fun challenge that's added when you throw in the difficulty setting to these wraiths that can spawn. And I think that kind of concludes it. We went over the difficulty settings. We talked about, the different benefits with the experience gain in the virtue experience. We talked about the rewards. We talked about the classes that struggle. And some tips of, if you want to get it done, you want to look at range classes. You want to look at stuff with self-sustain and a lot of kiting potential. And we've looked at just how the difficulty setting affects the game as a whole. And that's really it. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you for suggesting it, those that did. I think that was a great idea. And if there's another thing that you want to see, leave a comment. Let me know what other videos you want to see, what guides you want to see. Right now in the works, I'm working on the Lore Master and Runekeeper guides. So if there's other classes that you want to talk about, let me know. I have plans for legendary item guides for when Moria comes out on the legendary servers. We don't have Moria right now, so can't talk about them in too much detail just yet, but those are in the works. And from there, I'll maybe talk about the Moria dungeons. But yeah, if there's stuff that you want to see in a video, let me know. It can really be anything. It can be if you want to know like best questing routes or zones to go to or avoid. Let me know. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.